Coming up on Outlook, preserving the culture. Find out how Western Kentucky University is doing its part to document, preserve, and share the stories of Kentucky's unique character. We're going to meet the person who is charged with overseeing the newly relocated Kentucky Folklife program, Brent Bjorkman. And then later in the program, we're going to introduce you to the latest initiative from PBS. It's called American Graduate. You can find out how a nationwide effort is bringing the spotlight to area schools. All that and more coming up next on Outlook. Stay with us. Hello and welcome to Outlook. I'm Barbara Dee. We're glad you joined us. We are talking heads on a mission, and our mission today is to enlighten you about Kentucky's Folklife program. We are joined on the program today by Brent Bjorkman. I promised I wouldn't mess up your name. Brent Bjorkman, who is going to now be in charge of that and serve as the director of the Kentucky Folklife program. But before we go any further, welcome.
Thank you so much,
Thank you for
Barbara.
being here.
It's
And
good to
then
be.
we want you to explain to our viewers, you know, they hear that term, folk studies, folk life. Well, I know them folks, but what are we really talking about when we use that term?
Well, as folklorists, what we do is we document the expressive culture that people carry on in their lives day to day. In a community, it could be the musical traditions, it could be the food traditions, religious traditions, occupational traditions that are passed on face-to-face outside a higher learning context, a school. It's something really that I think begins at home and in the community. And it's really documenting the stories, going right to the source, the people who pass these traditions on, carry on these traditions. That's so enlightening to us, and I think deep down it's really enlightening to most people because that's where learning starts, is either at home, with a parent, with a grandparent, or someone in the community.
When you talk about traditions, and Western Kentucky University has a very rich tradition in this arena and is renowned in these parts across the country, across the world, for its folk studies program and anthropology. So now we're taking the Kentucky Folklife program and moving it here. And so for years, for about 2 decades, it's been housed in Frankfort?
Yes, it's been at the interagency part of the Arts Council and the Historical Society for the last 20 years, and now it's going to be here at Western.
So this makes a lovely complement to what's already been happening here for so long. So help the viewers understand why this might benefit us all.
Well, absolutely. The Folk Studies program has been at Western for over 40 years now. One of the reasons, and I'm actually a product of that program.
Yay, you're a graduate, yes.
Yes, and then in the late 1990s, I graduated from this particular university in folk studies because, in fact, when I was searching out where I wanted to go, I initially had been connected to folklore because I had a real connection in Santa Fe, New Mexico, with an exhibit called Swedish Folk Art, All Tradition is Change. And I was meeting the practitioners of this that had learned these old traditions, but they kept infusing their own individual pieces into their work, into their craftsmanship. And that was my aha moment. It was, okay, you have these traditions, you learn it informally with somebody, some mentor in the community, but every person that does it puts their own shift on it. So the dynamic nature of what folklore is, it's always changing. And I knew I wanted to present this kind of stuff, but where would I go to get education about this? And every finger pointed to the Folk Studies program at Western Kentucky University. Very renowned for getting people to document these kinds of things. Cultural aspects, or as we might say, the intangible aspects, but also a lot about historic preservation, homes, and what those stories have to say about a particular community. So that's kind of how I came into it.
And what a lovely opportunity for us all. You know, we're in a place, you know, life is changing, it's moving very rapidly, it's moving very quickly, interests change. Do you get a sense that there is renewed interest in preserving these stories, or has it never wavered? Like this is something that's just remained important?
Well, I think there's a couple of things there. I don't know why it is, but it seems particularly in Kentucky, people are really thoughtful of what has come before. And I think there's a real passion and a pride for what is Kentucky, that sort of thing. And I'm not exactly sure, but I think that as our baby boomers get older too, they have time to be thinking about this. So maybe in a general context, there is a lot of interest about, you know, the things that happen, the folk ways, as we might say, how things happened before and how these things continue on. And the idea of story, I think people, maybe in an electronic age, they start to think about, you know, smartphones and computers and things, and not being completely tied in to the face-to-face things like you and I are doing right now. So I think that's also a reason that people really want to connect with this intimate kind of knowledge.
Well, it's so true, because I believe this to my core. Everyone has a story to tell. Yeah. You know, and in any line of work, it's all about the story. What makes the best story? How do you get the best story? How can you share that story? So through the Folklife program and through folk studies, we can make sure that these stories don't go away, that they're preserved. What about the preservation aspect? Mm-hmm. Because that takes doing. That takes, you know, some means by which we can make sure that these things stay. So how do we go about that?
Yeah, well, absolutely. You know, what we do is we go out and we document. And when I say document, by doing field work, that means we go out to where the communities are. And we usually use digital recorders. We use oftentimes still cameras, now digital kinds of cameras, to capture these stories that you're talking about, the images of the place, and being able to preserve those. But what I like to say first is, it's kind of a three-part process of what we do. The first part is to actually do that, that documentation, and really give validation to those people that we're interviewing.
Well, give me, like, for example, if you're watching from home and you're thinking, well, what exactly is he talking about? We might have someone who originated basket making in a certain part of the state, in this region, and as a field producer or a field gatherer, yes, you would go out and you would actually interview and intermingle with this person who's making the basket.
Right, and you would have that relationship go over a period of time. It's not one simple interview. It's building a relationship with that person. In that example that you started off is the white oak basket tradition, which is a great example because it's here in this central part of South Kentucky. We might go out to the woods and go from the very beginning of the process to taking the tree out of the woods and documenting that, to the basket making process, and maybe it's to the selling process or how they show their baskets. So we try to encapsulate the entire story that somebody wants to tell, depending on how they want to tell it. And it's to validate that. You know, how many times have I had a basket maker come up to me afterwards and say, you know, I never thought that anybody cared about what I did. So that's a real gratifying thing for me. It's a gratifying thing for them. And so we take this information, and before we archive it, and we can talk about that in a moment, we want to produce something educational out of it, whether it's an exhibit that shows the white oak basket and how it's moved over history and maybe some of the techniques about producing it, or maybe we do a radio program. I know that we've had a really stellar student here last year who did a particular audio piece on your public radio sister here. And that was a wonderful piece to bring this knowledge to a wider audience. And then finally, all these pieces are disseminated into the archive at the Kentucky Museum, which is a home that anybody can access. The public can access it, but it's also great for researchers and scholars who are interested in this kind of thing, and that might add to their own work.
And that's so huge that people don't realize what an amazing resource is right here. And now, who would access this resource? Would you use it simply to learn, to get greater knowledge, or if you have to do some research? How does that work?
I think it runs the gamut of anything. There might be somebody who knows that their grandfather was interviewed in 1981, and they knew somebody from Western did it. So they might actually come in, and it might be something very emotional and intimate for a particular family member that they wanted to share with others. Or it could be somebody nationally known as a basket scholar who really wants to learn about South Central basket making in Kentucky.